Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters. Anyone showing symptoms of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from the meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order, and I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory on the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. Panel members for today, to my left is Marks, and to his left is Gary Winklater. My name is Brent McIntyre, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. Our assessors for today, there's two of them, is Jeremy Pohl and Matthew Baracus, and our secretary is Belhan Rosenthal. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence by market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Thank you. If you would like to swear. And for the purposes of these meetings here, it's affirmation.
Marcelo Navarro.
You are from the evidence to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Bill. And just a note, they're tearing down the public safety building, so there's equipment there that you'll have to speak louder than you normally would. First item on the docket is 535 Cannock Road, and Jeremy, you can proceed.
File number is 2021. Roll number is 09007593000535 Road. For the 2020 assessment, we have $1,955,000. Briefly, what happened to this property? There's a bit of updating that went on. There's a renovation that occurred. They renovated about 9,000 square feet of the building for office use. The permit indicates interior and exterior alterations to existing building work includes demolition of interior partition walls, construction of interior partition walls, new exterior, new interior doors, new millwork and finishes, mechanical and electrical also included. And the permit value was for roughly $800,000. We had an inspector go through the property. The Concord representative indicated that 95% of the work was done in approximately August of 19. And that 9,000 square feet of the interior space was updated and renovated, and that 25,000 square foot is still used as storage, or just, I guess, the old space that wasn't updated yet. I guess there's no tenancy in there. So it looks like it is a two-story building. All right, so when we go through the property, there is approximately 11,550 square feet of leasable areas built in 1980, one story. It is owner occupied. Again, with one space being occupied, another space not being occupied. Look over to our, before we do the comparables, we can turn to page 11. And just go over where it's located on the planet. So it's right next to the new Princess Auto. Princess Auto was in this before prior. And hangers, I think, at one point in time, quite a while back. So when we look at this space, there is no lease that we have. Again, it was owner occupied in this renovation that went through the property. We look to the marketplace on page 4 and page 5. For larger size CRUs, we have an inventory of approximately 460,000 square feet, a median CRU size of approximately 12,000 square feet. The average rental rate is $15.20, the weighted average is $14.17, and the median is $15.52. For the smaller CRU spaces, which is on the next page, page 5, and continuing on to page 6, we have an inventory of approximately 141,551 square feet for the median CRU size of 1,667 square feet, with an average rent of $14.06, weighted average of $13.86, and a median of $13.75. So our analysis for the marketplace analysis that we put in place for the C2 space, which is the office space, the 9,015 square feet, we have an average. We have a rentals value from the averages that we had at $13.51 a square foot. And then for the unfinished area or storage area, space that hasn't been renovated yet, we have $9.77 a square foot. So that produces an average for the total of the building of $12.69, or PGI of $146,191. When our vacancy comes off at 5.5%, gives us an effective gross income of $138,150. Our standard 2% expenses combined with the $7 shortfall gives us a net operating income of $130,554, capped at 6.7%, which is in about the average of the suburban capitalization rate that we use for suburban office. Gives us our capitalized value of $1,954,537. Rounded is $1,955,000. Pretty basic field today. With that, I'll open the questions.
Thank you. Raquel?
Yeah. Going through your comparables here for office rents, a lot of them are coming from the southwest corner of the city. Would you say that that is comparable to this area?
Which
ones?
are you looking at?
So I would say that the majority of them are
the
actually
large area or the small area?
I'm actually concentrating on the area in general. Not so much the buildings themselves and the leases that are coming up. Because really none of your leases support your rent.
I would say not that. I mean, we have Region comps on page 6. And on page 5, comparables 35, 36, 37, 38.
I don't have
39.
I don't have
40.
comps on 6. Well, I'm looking at the 2019, right?
We started with the 20. File number 20.
Did we start off with 2020?
No, we started off with 2021.
Oh, 20
The order of the docket.
Okay. Generally, this is just the general Winnipeg marketplace. We're not isolating to one specific. We're just taking the newest leases that are coming into the marketplace.
right.
And you
Okay.
This is what it is for
Okay.
And we can see page 6, so I'm not sure.
Okay. No, I got it. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. In terms of the improvements that were made to the property, do you know what the breakdown was in terms of mechanical, electrical, which would have been probably capital versus interior alterations versus exterior alterations?
I couldn't break that detail.
Okay. So if it was capital related, would it have affected the rent?
No, capital
Okay.
I don't believe this was a massive renovation.
Yeah.
Or updating the space.
Right. Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. No questions from me, Carrie?
Just a couple. So, Mr. Cole, you, I believe, said that this property was renovated 9,000 square feet for office, and it was inspected in August of 19.
Yes.
Did you yourself do the inspection?
No, we had a field inspector go through with the member from Concord Projects, who indicated that 95% of it was done in August of 19. So the main issue was the office space was done, and then as any building, if you don't have a tenant, you can leave it unfinished until you find a suitable tenant suited up to where the tenant is. So it's about 2,500 square feet that's remaining open. So it looks like it's a 2 CRU building as we speak.
So do you have any field notes on the actual renovation itself in terms of the quality of finish?
Just what was indicated. I can read from the notes. Most of the costs behind finishes, $50,000 spent on lighting, carpeting, motorized damper, electrical. It doesn't get that detailed. That's about all I have. Like I can't break it down to this X amount for drywall, X amount for ceiling.
Right, right.
It doesn't get that.
Okay. But so overall then, would you consider this just general office renovation? It's nothing spectacular?
That's exactly what I was indicating. It's not like it's a high-end finish. It's just generally updating the space, you change the drywall, you change the carpets. It's just,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick question. The actual year built is 1989, which is what, 30 some years old. There was no thought about changing the effective year built?
not based on the renovation that went through. That's why I indicated it was only $800,000 for that size of square foot. Could we have? Maybe, but I'm not going to, this appeal, I'm not going to change the effective date based on what was already reported.
Okay, thank you. That was all my questions. Marcello, you're up.
Okay. 535 Panet Road. Again, we have a leasable area of 11,513 square feet. C3 zoning, and you can see the overhead picture on page 3. The current assessment is $1,955,000. We're asking for $1,599,000. Again, I don't think I need to go over renovations. I think Mr. Pohl described them accurately. If you turn to page 6, to our market rent analysis. So we used a combination of suburban office comparisons and also some retail rents. Based on what we looked at, we used a rent of $11.50 per square foot. If you turn to page 8, again, the age of this property is 1989, 11,513 square feet. Potential rent of 132,400, vacancy of 5.5, effective market income of 125,118. Management, of course, we call those non-recoverables of 7%. Shortfall of $7 gives us a net operating income of 111,927, to which we've applied a 7% capitalization rate, giving us a value of 1,598,954. And I am open for questions.
Can you turn to page 6, your comparable page? I'll start by the office comparisons. You indicated that there was no rents that I had that were close by, but you indeed yourself don't have any rents that are close by as far as office comparables go.
Correct.
You have an average of $12.50, median $11.50, so not too far off the $13.50 that we have. As far as average wise goes, it's about $1 out, $2 out if you look at the other. As far as your retail rents, you're putting in your retail rents because you consider that one of the series that is left open maybe retail or maybe a conversion back.
Exactly.
Okay. So when we look at the rents that are put in here, we have one at 25,000 square feet and one at 34,000 square feet. So we could pretty much exclude comparables number 6 and 8, given the fact that the size of the subject property area.
Right, we would be looking more at the smaller CRUs, index 1, 2, 3, not even 3, 5.
So we have the remaining leases that are in place that start in 12, 1 at 15, 12, 11, 11. So those are older rents that are signed
Yes, yes,
and that are effectively in place at the reference date.
right. They are longer term leases. Yes.
We are seeing that everything else is comparable, except for the cap rate here, you're choosing 7%.
Again, the overall age of the building, 1989, even though it has had some renovations done to it, still, we think it's reflective of the type of building that is, the location and the age. I would say that the location also bears some influence on that cap rate.
So a little bit of work that was done towards the larger series wouldn't contribute to an average or a bit above average rent.
It could, but
Definitely not on the other side.
right. And what I would say that is happening here also is that this is not a typical location for an office building. If you've ever been on Pattern Road, you know where this is. So,
In the Princess South Place.
yeah, I go to Princess South.
So my last question, and I'll get back to the risk of the rent conversion back to retail or not. Typically, we find that retail location rents would exceed office rents. And yet we're seeing that your retail rents that you've selected are underneath the level of rent at an office.
Well, it would depend on what kind of retail rents we're talking about. If we're talking about big box stores, it really, you would have to describe what type you're looking at.
Fair enough. That's all the questions.
Thank you. Yes. My question's been answered. Thank you.
I have no questions.
I have one question. On page 7, Marcello, you said that you've accepted the city's cap rate of 7.25. Yeah, the city's at 6.5.
Basically, what has happened here is I've gone with 7%.
So with neither, because your workup shows 7.25.
Are you looking at the 2020?
I'm looking at the 2019.
We're doing the 2020 first.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 2020. It says 7%.
Oh, sorry. My mistake. That's okay.
Sorry, how we arrange the dockets in chronological order.
Oh, I see. No, just to confirm, we are doing 2020. So.
But,
When they first came out, they were,
no, they weren't.
and that's what I was trying to prepare for my notes. And that was all I had, which wasn't relevant anyway.
I mixed them up at the beginning also. I started off with 2019.
Well, given the fact we spent the last 2 months doing business assessment, I have
Yeah.
quite a comment.
I can see that very clearly.
So the next one on the docket is the 2019 roll. And Jeremy, you can proceed.
File number is 2022. Roll number is 0900759300. 535 Hannah Road for the year of 2019. We have 1,895,000. Given everything we just said for the previous appeal,
Carry
forward. Still owner occupied. We don't have any rents. Same idea. Same spaces. Comparables are same. Although I removed some of them because of the reference date. The 17s were on the last page. This one is just leading up to the 16 year. So we have a total inventory of 287,000 square feet approximately, median CRU 12,243, an average rent of $50.37, weighted average of $13.93, and a median of $15.50. So the rent range didn't really change all that much for the larger CRUs. And we have an overall average of $12.93. $12.69. Again, our totals for the potential rent is $148,947 applied to the 11,515 square feet of leasable area. 7% vacancy gives us an effective gross income of $138,521. We then have an expense inclusive of 5% management, because the former cycle, the former year, we were including it in and out. Was the last appeal we only had 2%. We removed the management. Applied also, the shortfall gives us a net operating income of $123,184, capped at 6.5%, gives us our capitalized value of $1,895,000. That pictures are the same, so I'm open to questions.
Marcel?
I think only just one question. Rent is actually falling as you're going forward, correct?
Can you speak up?
So your rent is actually is actually falling as you're going forward, correct?
Yeah, there's $9.77 applied to the C6 base, and there's $13.80 applied to the space.
Okay, but your average rent for 2019 is $12.93, correct? And for the 2020, it was
it's within like a
$12.63, I believe. $12.69. So it's actually just gone down by a few cents.
Yeah.
In 2020. Otherwise, everything is pretty much the same, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Hold on a second. $12.93. We're looking at 24 cents difference. So for statistical analysis for 1 year to the next, it's close enough.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. No questions.
Good.
Nothing. Thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, Mr. Pohl, just in regards to your page 4 on your rent comparables, are any of them owner occupied?
Or no. None of them would be owner occupied.
And also, I think Mr. Navarro had already brought this up in terms of location. These are, your comparables are mainly in the south, the majority of them are in the south. So are you suggesting there isn't office space up in the north end on Pamet?
When I did the analysis, there was very limited stock. That's why I didn't bring it in. There was very limited stock to bring in for that reference. So that's why I only have this. If there was more to bring in, I would have brought it in, given the size of the area.
So when you say limited stock, they weren't really favorable comparables at all?
Not that many of it. Not that many of it. That's why when you look at the former year, the year afterwards, if you look at 17 years, quite a number. That's just the way the analysis ran with the spreadsheets. Just didn't find any.
Thank you.
I bring in the best evidence that we can find, and given the fact that the rent, if you look at the larger CRU, the smaller CRU, regardless of the rent period, it's still pretty tight, which you would expect in a 2-year window.
Thank you.
And I have no questions. Marcel?
Like Mr. Pohl's, there's not much difference in my brief as well. So we can actually just switch to page 6. And these are some of the comparables that we've used. Again, we used the same methodology that we used in the previous one for 2020. We've scaled back the rent to $11 per square foot. Vacancy allowance of 9.5%. Non-recovered $6.50 per square foot. sorry, 7% non-recoverables, and 650 for shortfall, and a 725 cap rate. And on page 8, you can see the workup there. And so the indicated market value is $1,372,135, or $119.18 per square foot. That's basically it. I'm hoping for any questions.
Thank you. Jeremy?
None other than to confirm that it's the same group of comparisons that you practiced.
Thank you. Carrie?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. The next one is 621 Academy Road. And it's a 2020 appeal. Jeremy?
One moment for review. Here for 1 moment. We have file number 195142. Roll number is 1209780670. Address is 621 Academy Road. The 2020 assessment, we have a $5,100,000 assessment. We have a property that was built in 1985. There's a small renovation or addition put on in 2011. We have a total leasable area of 34,862 square feet. If we come to page 2, just show what's happened. On page 3 is how the roll formally sat. We have a slicing out of a small segment of area, which triggered a new roll number. So we issued a supplemental assessment. From that point, our model parameters kicked in. We came up with an assessment of $5,100,000. I'll go through the analysis if need be. Analysis is, starts on page 13. CRU inventory, as we indicated earlier, is pretty much the same. Total inventory of 460,000 square feet approximately, median CRU of 12,243, average of 1520, weighted average of $14.17, median at $50.32. Our workup is on the next page, page 14. So for the larger CRU size space, 20,442, we have $13.87. For the storage area, we have $6.93, which produces a potential rent of $383,462. For the leasable area of 34,862 square feet, potential rent is then applied to the vacancy of 5.5, which gives us a gross effective income of $362,372. Expenses at 2%. Again, we're not putting in the 5% management. Move that from that to the cycle. Shortfall is $7, and our net operating income is $341,703. Capped at 6.7% gives us our 5.1 rounded value. Just a little bit of history on this property. So that was the marketplace analysis. We have this property being sold. Page 10, there was a sale of the property at approximately 5.6 million. It was sold pushing the reference date at May of 2018. You know that it superseded came before this, April 1st, 2018. Contract must have been signed before that. It's close enough to the reference date that we can go about a month or two afterwards. You can't spend $5.6 million within 7 days, so it must have been signed prior to the reference date. As we go through this, highlighted in line 4, there was some stuff that was included, machinery and equipment for approximately 1.5 million, some business accounts for 200,000. As we go through it, we think that there is going to be a large renovation to the property. Highlighted in yellow, I've looked for permits for the property. I'm not sure, couldn't find any. There's nothing that we know of. It looks like they intended to subdivide the property. I'm not sure if that was the little bit of segment that was come off the front. But overall, when I'm looking at this, it looks like there's a redevelopment in flux here. I haven't got it as an assessor. So I'm not sure what could be in place that would give a quick answer. But from what I can see, everything that given on this property that would look to be going into buying it, you know that this lab isn't going to continue forward. It's not you're not buying this lab to continue this lab in this vein that it's been used as by the RCMP. So the sale price of this property is approximately 3.9 million. I think that's reasonable to reduce it to. The value that Ellen is coming with is approximately 3.979 on acceptance of their recommendation of that, given the sale price of the property and obviously that's going to be a change.
So you're accepting 3.9?
3.7.
979. Is that your position?
That's my position.
One.
I don't know if I have to go through it.
Well, yeah.
It's essentially coming as a recommendation, right? So I can accept the recommendation.
So you're making the recommendation.
Based on the sale price of the property, in the unique situation that this is not a use that's going to continue. It's pretty obvious that this is not going to be a RCMP lab or any kind of lab. From what I gather, from what the sales questionnaire indicated. So prudent buyer purchasing it would know what they would pay to renovate what they're doing.
So is the RCMP still there? They vacated.
It's vacant.
Doug, any questions?
So the recommendation is at
3.979.
3.979.
Gary?
Just confirming, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time.
I'm
hearing
sorry, I'm
Jerry.
trying to yell. Go ahead.
Feel free to yell. Sorry, your recommendation then agreeing with the applicant, agreeing with his number.
It's
It's based on your sale.
It's based on the sale price. A prudent buyer purchaser would look at the product and go, okay, I'm going to have to do something. It's not going to remain a forensic lab. It's not. I don't have permit work to indicate what it's going to be turned into, or if it's in flux, or if they just bought it for an investment vehicle to sit on it. You can do that too.
Thank you.
I just have one more question. Martello, the nature of the application is liability, amount of assessed value, which we talked about, and classification.
I don't believe we're arguing the classification. Can we withdraw that? Or maybe confirm the classification and
It's whatever you want.
yeah, let's just, I would confirm the classification and go with the recommendation on the value. Yeah.
thank you, Jeremy. I guess you're done.
That was fast. It's not that fast.
Very much.
I don't know if we can take a break and I can talk with Matt.
Sure.
Just that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. And or.
Yeah. And
And we'll reconvene the hearing. And welcome Matt Burrows. The next property on the.
Matthew Stephen Rose.
You are currently representing Section 402. Thank you.
The next property is 291 Goulet in the 2019 model.
Okay, poll number 0607551500, file number 20-13. 291 Goulet Street. It's an apartment on Goulet in St. Boniface. The only year we're looking at is 2019. April 1st, 2016 reference date, we've got an assessed value of $13,578,000. It's one building. 6 stories, originally built in '64 with an effective year built applied to it of 1974. There's 105 suites. There's 62 outdoor parking spots. Construction Class B reinforced concrete frame. If you go to page 2, you see that they have been compliant with handing in their mailers. Page 3, that shows our income value here. So of the 105 units, we've got 13 bachelor, 61 bedroom, 32 bedroom, and 2 3-bedroom units. Our average monthly rent we have applied to this property is $1,064. Our income summary is below. We've got model vacancy. Effective gross rent of $1,317,886 and a 45.91% expense ratio with our calculated net operating income and model 5.25 cap rate. We get our estimated market value of $13,578,000. So it's got a 10-year effective age applied to it. There's a tax certificate for this property and it was inspected December 9th, 2019 with the on-site manager. Following renovations were confirmed by the on-site manager. All balconies were done 2 years ago. There was a gym added and a mailroom. Upgraded all windows covering stores and a new roof 5 years ago. New plumbing, dishwashers were added to some suites. Upgraded pool and deck, upgraded concrete parking garage, 6 new hot water tanks, intercom and all common areas have been updated, flooring, paint, etc. The work has been done in the past 5 years. The on-site manager said that roughly 60% of the suites were updated and they have been renovated as tenants leave. So they leave, they fix them up, they ask for more rent and they go from there. 10 years effective age was applied to the property to reflect the improvements. So keep checking our page. Some comps in the area for the property. 3 of the 4 are of similar age. They all are of various property or other unit count and type. They bracket the subject property in terms of average monthly rents per unit. Our typical cap rate table is found on page 5 with their model cap rates. If you go to page 7, you'll find the 2015, 2014 income statements submitted to the city of Winnipeg. The rent roll is found on pages 8, 9, and then you've got other older rent rolls on page 10. Photographs of the apartment begin on page 11. You see that the exterior balconies have been done. The inside of the suites have been done as well, some of them, 60% as per the information I have in my brief. The cabinets, it looks like have been done, flooring, paint. So those pictures go to page 15. On page 16, we've got the permit value, $790,000 for the balconies. I've also included the rent roll from 2018, 2017. On page 18, I did my considerations. So they've been renovating this property as people move out of it. So what I noticed was, if you look at my page 18, is if you look at the rent they were receiving as per the year we are physically assessing the property, it's many times in excess of what's being represented in the 2015 roll. So what I'm showing you basically is the 2015 numbers don't actually represent the income producing potential of the property in its physical condition as of the assessment year we're looking at right now. So what I did at the top of my page 18 is I took the 2017 income, because we're looking at the 2019, 2018 is the reassessment year. So I took the 2017 income, and then I factored it back as per rent control, what they would be getting for the property in its physical state, and brought it back to the year prior to the reference date of April 1st, 2016. You'll see that rent control during this time, 2 years, would have been 2.6%. Using the factored back, taking into account the valuing the actual physical condition as of 2019. This year, we're physically assessing it, there's a 14% change. So I'm showing you that the numbers in the 2015 income expense statements submitted to us don't actually represent the income producing potential of the property as of the year we're physically assessing it. When I applied this factored back rent, going into the larger table at the bottom of page 18, and applied all the parameters to it, and then applied a $1,200 per unit, which is more typical repair and maintenance to the property, and compared it to what we're assessing it at, it looks like we're pretty close. We're within about $100,000. I used $1,200 per unit on the repair and maintenance. That's a figure that's more typical of the property. If you look at the figures on page 17 for repair and maintenance and the figures on page 10, you'll see they are much greater than what's typically seen for an apartment just operating in perpetuity without increasing its income producing potential by renovating. It's much higher than we typically see. So that's not what we're looking at. We need to look at it as it is, staying as it is, not as it is getting better continuously. So when I calculated that out, it came to a value that was highly similar to the 2019 assessment. Therefore, I didn't make any changes to the property. That's my evidence.
Thank you. Marshall?
Just to be clear, you didn't override the rent? Or did you?
No.
Okay. Now, given that you didn't override the rent and you're comfortable with it, am I understanding this correctly, that you're looking at the present, at the time of this reassessment, not our present right now?
Mhm.
So the present physical condition at that time, but taking into account the market conditions for when would the reference date? April 1, 2016?
Yes.
Okay. So, given that you've taken the income, or at least looked at the income in the forward-looking income, did you factor for any vacancy?
Well, in terms of,
Because the vacancy that you have is 1.5%. Sorry, 1.7%.
yes, 1.7.
Okay. Now, you've got this information in here on page 17. In 2018, vacancy was about 5.3%. In 2017, it was over 10%.
Mhm.
Again,
Sorry, what were those years again? Say that, yeah,
2018 and 2017.
2018, 2017, okay.
So if you're going to look at the income potential of the property forward, or I guess in that time frame, the physical condition at that time, wouldn't you also look at the vacancy?
Okay, so for that, I mean, they can't rent the suites out when they have workers and they're fixing them up. And we're looking at like a $13.5 million investment. Whoever is buying this isn't going to be buying it in regards to a small snapshot period where vacancy would be higher because workers are in there fixing the place up.
Right.
There would be some absorption time, but this isn't like a short-term investment, so I use market vacancy.
Right. But at the same time, during that time frame, and I believe the time frame of these renovations was, I mean, are they still going on?
As far as I know, the notes I have is that they're ongoing and they're renovated as tenants leave. It says that roughly 60% of the suites have been upgraded. And it seems as though, like, historically, they've been
Right.
getting jumps in excess of rent control that they're continuing.
Right. Right. But wouldn't you agree that during that time frame that there would be additional vacancy?
Yeah, it's definitely reported in the numbers.
Regardless of what the rent is saying, there would have been some additional rent vacancy that would have been incurred because of these renovations, correct?
Yeah, you can't rent it out when it's being fixed up.
Okay. And in terms of cap rate, you've got the cap rate at 5.25.
Mhm.
Now, this is a 1974 building. It's actually built in 1964, but because of the renovations that were made to it, the effective age was changed. You added additional 10 years, correct?
It was added, yes.
Okay, so, but given that, we're still looking now at a 1974 building,
Mhm.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
As far as permits are concerned over the last value attached to that?
I have the permit for the balconies. In terms of when they fix them up, typically what we see when they fix properties up by suite, they don't take out permits. So I don't have any permits for the interior renovations.
Okay. Has there been any air conditioning added, or is it still the window unit type air conditioning?
Upgraded window coverings, doors, new roof, new plumbing, dishwashers, some suites, upgraded pool deck, concrete. I wasn't the one who inspected it, so I can't comment in regards to the air conditioning. It's not my notes.
And about 60% of the suites have been upgraded to date.
That's what we have as of December, the note I had December 13th, 2019.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Carrie?
Yeah, Mr. Barkas, I just have a question regarding your page 4 on your rent comparables. This property on Goulet is 105,000 square feet. Comparables are much smaller.
I didn't put much weight on the comparables. I used the mostly the activity and the rent roll and the income expense mailers to determine whether or not we were overstating or understating rent. So I honestly didn't really put weight on these.
So my next question is, they say they've got 105 units, and more than half of them are one bedroom. So is it not more desirable to have 2-bedroom apartments? Are those not easier to rent?
I haven't seen any studies in regards to that being a factor.
And in terms of the renovation, it's been, I think you'd stated balcony and some kitchen upgrading.
Balconies 2 years ago, there was a gym and a mailroom that was added. All the windows, coverings and doors were upgraded. There was a new roof 5 years ago, new plumbing, dishwashers were added to some suites, upgraded pool and deck, upgraded concrete parking garage, 6 new hot water tanks to intercom, and all common areas have been upgraded, flooring and paint, etc. That's what my note says. And then looking by the pictures, it looks like there's been some millwork done, flooring, paint.
Do you know when this was inspected last?
This was inspected December 9th, 2019.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. And I have no questions. Tom?
Okay. And this is 291 Goulet Street. You can see an overhead picture on page 1 and on page 2 just to see the general location of the property. Again, 13 bachelor suites, 61 bedrooms, 32 bedrooms, and 2 3-bedroom units. I'll ask that you turn to page 8 in the appendix. So we took a slightly different approach here, not factoring as the assessor did. However, given what I've seen so far, I'm actually comfortable with what we've put forward. So we have our potential market gross rents here. We've added no vacancy, and we've added additional income of laundry and sundry and parking, giving us an effective gross income of $1,144,455. Now, again, we're going back to this. If we adjust the rents upward, which possibly we could have done, we would have had to make some type of adjustment for vacancy, which we didn't in this situation. So we've taken the actual expenses at that time frame. So the expenses total $552,647. That's a 48.3% expense ratio, giving us a net operating income of $591,808, to which we've applied a 5.5% cap rate. However, on page 5, you can see my cap rate chart that I've included, and these would have been included in just about every Altus appeal for 2020. So for the time period, we're looking at a building that was built in 1964 with an adjusted effective age to 1974. And I think that's not completely accurate, because I think when the assessors actually have the dash in between 1964 to 1974, I think it means kind of in limbo, as opposed to just having an effective age of 1974. However, even if we go with a 1974 effective age, the capitalization rate is actually 6% that we've used. I've made a mistake on this. I would probably ask that we revise it to 6%. However, that is up to you to accept.
What page are you on?
The cap rate?
Yeah.
5.
But you're referring to the 6% cap.
So if you look at the 2020 chart, if you look at the age bracket, 1960 to 1974. Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So yeah, it's take it either way. Either you adjust the rents one way or adjust them the other way. We took the approach that we didn't adjust the rents. We didn't apply any vacancy to it. We added the additional income and went with the expenses that were incurred on the property. However, if an adjustment is made to the rent, then I think an adjustment needs to be made on the vacancy as well. I'm open to questions.
Just on your page 5, we're looking at, like for this one file, we're looking at the 2019 assessment. So for 6+, wouldn't it be 5.5?
Sorry. No, you're right. Yeah, I was looking at 2020, thinking that.
Okay.
Yeah. 5.5.
And then for your work up here, so if we look at line 27, it looks like you stabilized using the 2011. Sorry, your stabilized repair and maintenance. Where is that from? 2011? Is that right?
Right.
So for 2011, does that not say 244,000 on it? Is that, I think that's the category we're looking at. Like if it's 13, 12, and then 11.
I'm thinking that there may have been an additional year there. I guess the point here is that obviously the repair and maintenance that was being incurred at that time was not something that we could have had there, because the repair and maintenance would have been $3,000-4,000. I don't know. I'd have to do the calculation. However, we can probably assume that some of that is capital and not just repair and maintenance. So that's why we have much lower repair and maintenance. However, yeah, I mean, if we go with 2011, then it would be 244.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It would be a slight uptick on the net operating income, correct?
like I looked at the 105 suites, and then I took just the most recent year on line 27, $957,802 spent. That's over 9,000.
That's capital.
Yeah, there's a lot of capital. So, but it'd be fair to say that after several years of capital repairs, that perhaps on an ongoing basis, you know, how things have been fixed up, the repair and maintenance would be lower than before. Work was done.
So by capital, I mean, for example, it can mean windows, it can mean some renovations to suites are considered capital. It can be balconies, that type of thing. So not necessarily, if you're talking about a capital expense that will make a building more efficient, I think you're talking about the building mechanicals being upgraded, HVAC, all of that, which is very expensive. But to get to your point,
would not be like run more efficiently and cost less after all that was replaced.
yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're doing to it. If it's aesthetic, I mean, if you're talking about suite renovations that are being incurred and typed as repair and maintenance when it's actually the renovations of the suites? No, I don't think so. Obviously, there's a lot of money. You said about $9,000 maybe going into these suites when your typical repair and maintenance is what, about 1,000 to 1,500?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about anywhere from $8,000 to $7,500. That is obviously that is probably not repair and maintenance and is probably capital. It's probably related to the renovations of the suites, which don't necessarily make the building more efficient unless you're actually taking the time to actually replace the mechanicals in the building. I had no indication that the mechanicals were being replaced. So that aside, I think in terms of the effective age, I think we're probably where we should be in terms of the capitalization rate. We've, as you pointed out, 5.5 is where we are at Altus. The year is slightly different. So I think the difference here is what rents are we going to apply to this? And if we are going to apply higher rents, are we going to apply vacancy to it? Because I think the 1.7%, while you may have a case for a slightly higher rent, 1.7% vacancy is clearly not high enough.
Okay, so I think we can both agree that the potential income reported on the 2015 mailer doesn't reflect the physical income producing potential of the asset January 1, 2008.
Right, and we didn't, again, we didn't adjust that income, but at the same time, you see that we didn't add for any vacancy. So even if we're looking forward and thinking about the change in the suites and the potential from additional rent because of those changes to the suites, we're still not talking vacancy here, which should have been expected at that point.
Okay, so in your mind, it should be around?
It should probably be around where it is.
10% on a long-term basis?
No, absolutely not. But we've got probably about 5 years of renovations going on here. So it would have had some effect on it. I mean, I would say that 1.7 is probably too low.
Okay, fair enough. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Just getting back to the renovations, it's going up and down quite a bit due to, I'm assuming, larger items being replaced.
Yeah, so they're doing these, I assume, as vacancies are occurring. So units are going vacant, they're renovating, they're coming offline, and then at some future point, they're coming online. So everything is fluctuating from year to year because you're not going to you can't say in a situation like this that I'm going to renovate 20 of the 100 suites this year. You're going to be able to renovate what you can, and it's going to fluctuate from year to year.
Has there been any renovations been done to the HVAC units on that contract?
Not that I know of, and I went through the permit search. I did an exterior of this building. I didn't get in, but I mean, it looks like a good building. But again, I would have, I think, seen the permits for the building mechanicals if they had been done.
That's all questions.
Here.
My questions have been asked and answered.
Thank you, and I have no questions. The next appeal is the same property for the 2020 roll. And Matt, the stuff you've gone through.
I won't say it again. Okay, file number 20-12, roll number 06075515000291 Complete Street. Roll year 2020, April 1st, 2018, assessed value $14,557,000. We just talked about the previous year's assessment, so I'm not going to go over the situation with the rentals. Page 4, those are the columns. it being compliant. So similar comps, and I did the same kind of analysis whereby I looked at the continuing state of renovation. So just skip ahead to page 17 for the purpose of saving everybody time here. So fiscal year is 2020. We're getting, so the financial reference date would be April 1st, 2018. So I compared the 18 potential income. I factored it back to 17. So we get a full year prior to the reference date. And I compared it, the boost in what they reported, which was the 1,241,947 compared to factored back. So you see the rent went up over 6.5%. It says 2019 rent control. 2019 and 2018 rent control were actually both 1.3%. So that was a typo, but the percentage is correct. So it went up several times higher than rent control, as evidenced. And they're doing a bunch of rentals. So I applied the 1 year factor back rent with our repair and maintenance at $1,200. Cross-reference the overall utilities EGI. It's about 10%. Seems to be operating pretty efficiently. And just use the numbers. We had our cap rate is 5.1. This our cap rate chart is on page 5A, and we have our cap rate sale examples on page 5. Third column from the, third table from the bottom, Roach, Talbot, Maxwell, and Ward, ranging from just above 4% up to 5%. Now, there are higher cap rates in the city too. This is just an example to show that there are cap rates in the city below 5% that support our model value, because it is a drop from where the low end was last time around. So we want to include some examples to show that they are based on actual sales. So my comments in regards to the physical income producing potential of the property and its relationship to the reference date from last go around last year, please roll them over this file. Thank you.
Okay. John?
So basically, we've just moved everything forward 2 years. A lot of the same analysis.
For sure.
Okay. So I think we've gone over it with you already. So I don't have any further questions.
No, for me, thank you.
Gary?
Yes, did you just state that you're using Ward Avenue as your comparison?
No, on page 5, these are the following is an example of actual sales that took place during the reference period. Is to show they're not specific to the property, they're just examples of sales and cap rates that happen during this time window, just to substantiate the model generated figures we have in our cap rate table.
Okay. You would agree that Ward and Goulet were very different properties.
Well, Ward's newer, that's for sure. But in terms of very different, I mean, where we got 103 suites versus 105 suites.
Well, I'm
Ward's
talking about age, built 2006 compared to 1964, and also location.
Yeah, well, they're not located in the same part of the city, but I mean, Goulet's been fixed up. We've got pictures of that. Ward's newer. I would actually say they're more similar than they are different.
I guess it depends what the definition of fixed up is.
Yeah.
Okay, so even though Ward is 2006, it's got a 5% cap rate, and this property on Goulet is effectively 64, and now you've lowered the cap rate to 5.10. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
St. Boniface is nice.
Thank you. And I have no questions. Portillo?
As with the assessor's brief, my brief is quite similar to the previous one that I presented, so I'm not going to go through a lot of it. If you turn to page 6 or page 5, you can see the cap rate that we've advocated here is 6%. I've used a 5.75% cap rate. So we're going to go through this one more time. So we've adjusted the potential rent, stabilized it to 1,241,947. However, the assessor's argument has been that we need to adjust the rent upwards. And we didn't, but we also didn't adjust the vacancy upward. As you can see in this one, like the previous one, if you look at the average vacancy for the 3 years that would have been used to come up with the values for this property, 2015, 2016, 2017, the average vacancy during that period was 8.7%. We're only using the 1.8% vacancy. So you can see that while we're not adjusting the rent upwards, we are making an adjustment on the vacancy. Again, the effective gross rent is 1,219,592. We adjust for laundry, parking. That gives us an effective gross of 1,271,886. We take the management. We take a look at the actual expenses. I'm just going to go over the repair and maintenance. So we've chosen a repair and maintenance of 150,519. Now, that gives us an expense ratio or an total expenses of 580,921, 45.7%. Again, that's not far off from what the assessor is also saying. Net operating of 690,965. I think what the difference is here is actually more the cap rate. He's got a 5.1% cap rate while we have a 5.75% cap rate. So the indicated market value that we're asking for is 12,016,774 or 12,017,000. Questions?
I have some rebuttal in regards to their cap rate study.
Okay,
So I think I have to hand it out
you're gonna have to tell us which one.
to, okay.
That's the first.
Let me make sure I got it here. That's from, I was told to bring. So I'll do this first.
Item 6 then?
Okay. What different titles I think that makes sense. Oops, I just want to make sure we're the same stuff. Okay, so the first one, item 6, good, that's the first one I wanted to look at. So,
And St. Mary's just.
yes, so 210 St. Mary's is found in the Altus cap rate study on page 6 of the Altus cap rate study. So Altus has it calculated at 6.25.
So how, just trying to figure out where we should go. So it's page 6 of the document we're looking at.
Page 6 of the Altus cap rate study is,
So that's different than the St. Mary.
yes, so I'm comparing what the owner indicated they purchased the property for on, sorry, page 5 of the first rebuttal item. They said they indicated on the highlighted portion, line 32, they said they bought it for 5.5. And the Altus study, Altus calculated it at 6.25.
So now we have to go to the office. Cap rate.
It'd be good to have
Okay.
Difficulty with what item is that?
It's also number 6. I think no one could use that.
So it's all in just number 6.
So number 6 is the application.
So are we looking at the applicant cap rate still? The last of item number 6, because there's,
Well, in Mellon, it doesn't include the,
So this is the accessories one.
four hundred and six.
I wasn't sure what file it is. Now you have them side by side.
So there's 2 number 6s.
So this one is the assessor's brief, and this is the applicant's cap study.
Oh, thank you.
And I think he wants them side by side. So this is the assessor's map.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, which one?
So if you're in the PDF, you have both open. If you go to page 5, the Altus cap rate study, and just leave it there, you'll see the overall summary of cap rates, what they've done. And then if you also page 5 of my first rebuttal there, you see 5.5 highlighted on line 32. It says that's what the purchaser indicated they purchased the property for. So there's about a 3/4 point difference between Altus's 6.26 calculation and the what the owner is saying they actually purchased it for. Also,
This, just to be clear, the 6.26 table is on page 3, correct?
it says 3 of the Altus file. It's page 5 of the PDF.
PDF.
So if you go back to my rebuttal and then you go to the last page, which is page 7, which is 718 Beach, which is a property in Altus's cap rate study. They said it was, again, line 32, it was based on the property's net operating income. This is the owner's declaration of what they purchased the property, and they said 4.5%. And then if you go back to Altus's same table here, Altus has it calculated at 5.42. So there seems to be a difference in what Altus is calculating it and what the owners are actually saying the property, what they purchased it at. So that's the first item. Now, I have a couple other ones. Should I stop there and your questions, or do you want me to keep going?
Related to this table?
Related to my the first one with the owner income and sale question. Do you want to ask me questions? Because there's some other rebuttal I have too. That's
Yeah, I know it's not.
yeah.
Well, let's question on the documents we got open.
Okay.
Marcello, are you okay with that?
The rebuttal, the other rebuttal evidence, where is that?
It's in different files. I'm gonna get to that after, but if you wanna ask me questions about the sales.
Is it relating to this stuff? Like,
Yes, it is.
okay, actually, I would prefer. I think you gave me this. Regarding the charts themselves, I think that's a separate issue from what Matt is going to be presenting next. I believe there are workups for these properties, are there not?
Yes, there are.
Okay. So Mr. DuPont actually acknowledges that there are differences in terms of his calculation of the capitalization rate. So he is making adjustments that the owner is not making adjustments. So that would account for the difference in terms of the different cap rate from what's being reported by the owner.
Mhm.
However, we clearly demonstrated how we got to that in those workups, correct?
Yeah.
You may not agree
I don't
with
agree with
it.
it, but
You may not agree with it, but we did document how we got to those, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
So I think that I'll just leave it at that.
Well, and unfortunately, he's not here for us to question.
Exactly. And I believe we've discussed these cap rates many times.
Okay, I just bring it up because I have to.
Yeah.
I'm not really on it,
Al, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, and then for the other item, which I believe, you go back to the window, which shows ATD rebuttal, which is again file 13. Sorry, you got here, it says item 6, 2-13 ATD rebuttal Altus form caps. So this was found online just at the end of last appeal season. It's, I got the website here. It's in regards to a PDF of the session from the Altus, from the Winnipeg Real Estate Forum, put up by Altus. This is all public information. So it looks like they were giving some sort of presentation. Colleagues, people in the industry at the convention center.
So this is dated May 30th, 2018.
Yes, this is what was on the slide. So if you go through it, you'll see that they talk about different demographics, supply, vacancy, affordability. In regards to cap, if you go to page 12, that's the chart. It just struck me as that's what they were reporting cap rate to be during this hearing. During this looks to be some sort of session. I wasn't there. I'm not sure what they're putting out, but it was put forth by Altus. It's got the Altus logo on it. So it struck me as odd. It's just that the cap rates are so much lower than what we've been seeing at the Board of Revision. Page 13, the last one, shows the cap rate versus Government Canada bond rate comparison. It shows that cap rate's been going down. So, and the final file of rebuttal, you go back to the PDF window. What I did is I charted the Altus caps.
What's the title of that one?
That one is BOR caps versus form. So open that one, please. And
It's a historical apartment cap rates.
yes, it's black and white. So what I did is that I just took the cap rates that were calculated and presented last season. And right now, the versus, and I've charted them by year in comparison to what was being put forth in this session at the Winnipeg Real Estate Forum. It looks like they're all very much higher than what the historical cap rates were supposed to be for those years. So it seemed like there's pretty strong amount of inconsistency. So I'm asking that you don't put weight on their cap rates because there seems that there's some kind of contradiction going on. That's my rebuttal.
Thank you. Marcello, questions?
When was this from?
It says RBC Convention Center, May 30th, 2018.
Now, in terms of the capitalization rates that are being looked at here, I'm looking at page 13, capitalization rates versus GOC bond rate comparison. That is a generalization. Do you know specifically what properties are being addressed in terms of this comparison here?
Oh, no, that information is not available.
Okay. So, again, what would you take from that?
I would take that either that they use different properties or they took the properties that were using the Altus cap rate study and they're stabilized.
Now, you probably heard this consistent term used in all Altus appeals, or at least some of them, in terms of the investment grade of the property, correct?
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
In different appellants.
Okay. So often what we're looking at is some of the best properties out there when we're analyzing for these types of studies. Now, that said, I don't have a sample of what was taken to make these generalizations. So I don't know how we could draw anything from that at this point. The properties that we looked at in the cap rate studies are very specific. Each one has a workup to it. Again, Mr. Barocas can disagree with how we got the end value and the end capitalization rate, but we are documenting it. In this case here, there's nothing really that I can draw from, so I don't know what weight to put on it.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any questions?
None from me, thank you.
Jerry? And I have no questions. I've got to go through all your rebuttals on the app. And Marcello, you're on.
Oh, I didn't even do it yet.
Oh,
Like 2020. Okay, I'll make this quite quick. We can just turn to page 8. I thought I had gone through this.
did he?
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it was my rebuttal.
Yeah.
My turn to ask questions.
yeah. I was,
Yeah.
because I was looking at the numbers and
I won't vote. Okay, so just, again, similar concerns in regards to income producing potential of the property as of the physical reference states. So on a per suite basis, the repair and maintenance used for 2020 would be about 1,433 per unit calculated. When I look at the properties in the cap rate study, just what jumped out to me, because we're mostly just talking about cap, it would seem, so
yeah.
I'm going to focus on that. It seems that if you go back to that, please still have that file open in the cap rate study. You start scrolling down, look at the individual stabilizations. I'm not going to go through them one by one, but it seems that the repair and maintenance per suite are much lower, ranging from $332 per unit up to, on the high end, 1,072 per unit. Does that not seem low in terms of what an apartment would operate in perpetuity?
$1,433. Correct.
That's what it is. I'm talking about just like the cap rate sales we use.
The cap rate sales.
Yeah, the cap rate sales, not the actual property. The actual property, I think, is fine. But the cap rate sales, I think perhaps they've been stabilized too low, and then a purchaser would anticipate higher yearly repair and maintenance.
It depends if they were bought, for example, for renovations, like if they were older buildings. What is the age of the one that you're looking at?
Oh, this one on St. Mary's, this one's 52. And it's got 1 year, it's only got triple digit R&M that was included. It's got a $332 per unit R&M, so it just seems that should have been excluded. That's all.
How many suites?
11.
There's your answer right there.
So that would be, okay, that's $87 per unit. Okay, you guys have heard a lot about the cap rate study before, so I'm not gonna go into it. That's my.
I would say that 11 suites you're talking about, that's not your investment grade property. It's your mom and pop who own that apartment building. Are they putting that much money into it? Probably not. They're probably more worried about their retirement than anything else.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Doug, anything?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Carrie?
No questions.
I have a question. So we're done with Goulet. Sure, let's take a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
We'll adjourn the meeting. We'll reconvene the hearing with the last property, 25 Ancaster Gate, 2019 roll. And Matt, you can proceed.
Okay, file number 20-39, roll number 030915676000, 25 Ancaster Gate. Looking at 2019, we got a value of 13,791,000. It's a new apartment, 3 stories. That's only one building, 69 suites, 81 outdoor parking spots. There's no tree reference date mailers, so that's not an issue. When you go to page 3, you'll see the workup on the property. 16 one-bedroom, 53 two-bedroom for a total unit count, average monthly rent, $1,466.80. When you run it through the market vacancies, 41.59% expense ratio on our 5% cap, which we actually agree on. We get to our value, yes, we have the same cap. We get to our value of 13,791. Page 4, those are the columns. These are newer properties ranging from 2013 and up. They all have 2-bedroom units. Comparable 3 does not have 1-bedroom units. Properties bracket the subject in regards to average monthly rent per unit. Capitalization rate chart is found on page 5. On page 7, you'll see the permit, construction permit for the place. Total project value for the construction, 12 million. Put any land costs, but the land does have some value too with it. 13,791 seems reasonable based on comps and with the extent declaration standpoint building replacement. An occupancy permit here for end of August 2018. Photographs start on page 9 and on page 27. I put this one on the roll. I didn't get to inspect it. Someone else inspected it, but I saw the pictures. Because we don't have rent roll at that time. You just take the rent roll you get, which is post-reference, and you factor back the income. So you ensure you're correct on the income standpoint. And then you apply the model parameters to it. So that's my evidence.
Thank you, Marcello.
So the rent is modeled.
The rent, no, I put it on. And I overwrote it to most accurately reflect the September 1st, 2019 rent roll factored back. You don't have any pre-reference date stuff.
So is it accurate to say that you use post-reference date information to factor back?
Oh, to put them on initially, we want to put them on as accurately as possible.
So what would the model have spat out?
Oh, with the model, I don't have a note for that. It depends. We set different income qualities based on condition, area. I don't have what the model would have.
So we don't know if this was higher than what the model would have been or lower than what the model.
This is more of a site-specific analysis. So,
Okay.
yes.
Starting off with post-reference date information, correct?
Oh, yeah.
In terms of the capitalization rate, we're okay with that, right?
It looks like we're the same, yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a new apartment building. You're aware that there's a rent up period in apartment buildings, correct?
It takes time, yeah.
Okay. So what is the vacancy that you have on there?
Well, we have a modeled vacancy 2.8%.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Deb?
None for me, thank you.
Gary?
Questions?
And I have no questions. So Marcello, you can present.
Okay. I'll just ask you to turn to page 8 of my presentation. I don't think we need to get into the building itself, but if you want to take a picture there, or take a look at the picture, it's on page 1. So the task here is trying to find a rent for this property. There are no rent rolls for it because they haven't been submitted yet. This building was started the rent up in 2019. So the earliest that we're going to see a rent roll, I believe, is 2021. No, 2020. 2020 will be submitted. So we should see one from 2020. What I can say about this is that we used CMHC as our source for the rents. CMHC conducts a market rent study. They've been doing it for probably 30 years plus. And what we did was we took an average of 2005 plus built buildings with 50 or 99 units, and zone 11, which is Fort Garry, which is the broader zone that this one is included in, and came up with averages. We didn't use post-reference date information. We came out with a GPI of 912, 840. Again, you decide whether you want to adjust that. What I will say is that the vacancy is an issue on any new buildings. So what we're documenting here is what has been relayed to us as to what the vacancy was like in 2019, and also for the following one. So is this a market consideration? I think it would be on any new building that there would be a higher amount of vacancy expected. So we've chosen a market vacancy of 10%. That has given us an effective gross of $821,500 556. Total expenses 341,685, giving us a net operating income of 479,871 at a cap rate of 9,597,417. As you move further on, I've just included the market rent study that is produced by Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Matt?
On your page 8, I just did a quick calculation. So it comes out to an average rent of $1,102.46. The rent that we have is $1,466. So it seems to be quite a difference there. When I'm looking at the CMHC averaging, how you came up with this figure is you looked at these 3 metrics and then you just averaged them to come up with an overall 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom rent.
Correct.
So you use 1/3 of it, so 2005 up. So the second heading, units 50 to 99, that would include buildings of all ages. 50 to 99?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And
Zone 11 would be everything that's
everything older, different areas,
right.
older areas. Might these skew the average rent downward, especially comparing it to my page 4, the newer comparables?
Well, your comparables, I may look at them quickly. Yeah, so you have 2 that support your rent and 2 that are slightly lower, correct?
Yes, 3 and 4 are lower.
Yeah, and if I'm looking at the top end, so this would be 2005 plus bracket. When I look at the 2-bedroom, I mean that is slightly higher. There may need to be some adjustment to the rent. I would say that maybe this is lower. However, again, I think the bigger issue I have is the vacancy.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so just in regards to the vacancy, given the price tag of this place, would this not be purchased as a long-term investment typically on the open market, arm's length?
I mean, not at the cost. I don't think the cost really bears too much in the marketplace. We don't use it. This would be income driven if it were purchased. So I would think that a prudent investor would probably want to take a look at rents in the area, see what type of rent they could come up with capitalization rate. In terms of expenses, again, you would look at similar situations to see how it's performing. In terms of the expense ratio that we've used, it's the same one that you have. I think the only question mark for me here is, again, the vacancy.
Okay, so the vacancy being 10%, I think the vendor would, knowledgeable vendor would agree that the property in the long term would sustain a 10% vacancy, which this property probably would be purchased for like a long-term income producing investment, or might they expect that lease up time to go to market and then the property just operate normally?
Well, we are talking about the lease up time, so we can't ignore that. We're not talking about how this building is performing 2 or 3 years from now, or even 4 years from now, because currently, I mean, there's still vacancy in this building. So obviously they've had issues with the lease up. But the issue itself is whether there is a rent up period and whether it warrants 2.8%.
2.8.
or something higher? I would say that probably higher, at least for the first few years of this building's life. And as I said, there's still vacancy here.
So given that the construction value was declared at 12 million and then the land has value in it as well, into a land search, might your valuation of 9.5 million be a little low?
Well, I think you're confusing cost and income, and often they don't coincide. So a developer can spend much more on their investment that they're going to get in return on that very same day. So if you're talking about what they spent on it, I don't think it has any relevance at this point. They're looking at, this is what, a 10-year hold on this investment. So you're going to see how this building performs over that 10 years, and then you're going to look at how much you would pay for it. I mean, again, I don't think cost really is relevant at this point. We're both doing it from the income perspective, correct?
Yes, it was valued from the income perspective. Just looking at the overall cost of construction is perhaps an indication of ballpark where the market value might be. That's all.
Yeah.
But but you're correct. It's valued on income.
Yeah, I don't think too many people would attempt to value an apartment building on cost.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Doug?
None for me, thank you.
Gary?
Did you actually speak with the owner?
Yes.
So what month did this start renting in 2018?
I don't have a copy of the supplementary with me.
Occupancy was late August 2018.
So do you know the percentage of the building that's rented
Currently, or back then?
back then?
Yeah, it's actually written into, oh, no. 10% is 2019. That's what they verbally told me. Yeah. And now it's sitting at 7.2. That would be for 2020 though, not for 2019.
Do you know how much the actual rent it is per month on the 2-bedroom?
I don't have the rents. I went through their website to see what they are, and they weren't advertised. Typically, what we'll do is wait for the first mailer to come through to actually go through that. We haven't received one yet. The first one will be 2020, and that will be, correct me if I'm wrong here, is it May 2021 that they have to submit 2020?
I think it's June. Like, we did get the rent roll, like we asked for the September rent roll when we put the property on, but it's for putting the property onto the roll. And we asked for information, occupancy, suite breakdown, so on and so forth. But in terms of being compliant with like income and expense information, yeah, I believe Marcello's right. It would be like June 2021 would be the deadline. The year of the complete year of 2020.
Thank you.
And I have no questions. So the last item is the same property, except it's for the 2020 roll, and that.
File number 20-40, roll number 0309156760025 Ancaster Gate. Assessed value reference at April 1st, 2018, 14,240,000. So not that much higher than we had in 2019. I already talked about the physical nature of the property, the rent. This time around, we've got $1,508 per unit. You can see our breakdown on page 3, page 4. Those are our comparables. So the brackets, the subject property, our subject property is the newest property out of all 4, and falls in line with comparables. Right, here's the cap rate evidence on page 4A and our cap rate evidence table on page 5. You've seen that permit before in the pictures, so that's my own.
Thank you. Marcelo, any questions?
I think it's basically the same as the previous one. We've just adjusted the rent a bit, so I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Carrie?
Page 3 of your brief is not driven.
The rent, I had access to the September 19 rent roll, so I was able to factor it back to ensure that what they were getting is in line with what we're setting.
That's all my questions.
Thank you, and I have no questions. So Marcello, you can proceed.
If you turn to page 8 again, we've done the very same thing, except we've updated the rates. Same metrics that we used on the previous one. So the income has gone up slightly here. We've applied a 7% vacancy on it, giving us an effective gross of 945,330, 41.59% expense ratio, and a 5% cap rate. I don't think there's much of a difference between the previous two, so I'm open for questions on it.
Thank you.
Again, the questions I asked last time around in terms of the suitability of the CMAC route calculation, I asked to be considered for this.
Thank you.
Just one regarding the vacancy rate.
Yeah.
Does that cover pretty much around the same for a newer complex like that?
For a newer complex, again, this is very new. So in the previous one that we did for 2019, it was sitting at 10%.
Right.
Now we've made an adjustment downward on the vacancy of 3% to 7%. So we're still saying that this thing is still it still has vacant units in it. And again, it'll likely continue for some time. But yeah, we did do an adjustment downward on the vacancy.
Carrie?
I have no questions.
And I have no questions. And that